That trailer's 3 minutes long. Look how long of a lore video VaatiVidya got out of that. 3 minutes? 40 minutes?
So the game
I've actually been watching a lot of Vaati's like 15 amazing Elden Ring secrets videos. Like when I'm getting ready in the morning, so I actually kind of, my brother's on Steam. I actually kind of want to watch this, but it is really long. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I'm just chilling anyway. Like, I did the main part of the streams. I don't know.
The Shadow of the Erdtree DLC just dropped. And it's
Or
also
wait, captions or no captions? I kind of like the captions, but I know for some people it kills the immersion.
Story heavy.
Pure and radiant, he wields love to shrive clean the hearts of men.
And this is very much the story of Mika. Let's learn what we can.
I look like a bad Pixar render sometimes.
You'll recognize Mika.
Does that make sense?
It's located in Mogwin Palace, and that is the DLC access point that will give way to this. What they're
Sorry, I
calling
don't know.
the
Sorry,
Land
I'm
of
watching the video.
A place that you can explore on June 21st as long as you've defeated Moog and Radahn. According to
Yes, I
Miyazaki,
knew
the
that.
DLC is at least the same size as Limgrave in the base game. This will be their largest DLC to date.
In that forsaken place,
Wait,
blood must spill.
how much does it cost, or is it free?
Blood of yourselves. The Erdtree faithful.
Interviews
40
also
bucks?
reveal that there will be 8 new
That's
weapon
fair.
categories and at least 10 new bosses.
I think that's fair.
They just happen to be on the losing side of a war.
Enemies here are the vestiges of a war that occurred in the Land of Shadow long ago. They've just been obscured by
Pro
the
said
Erdtree
free? Well, I
onto
don't
the
know.
map. So many feature designs that would be considered cursed or blasphemous in the lands between. And there's no better example of that than the newest member of Marika's family.
Aw, shit. She had
Mesmer.
a new self-cessed child.
Wouldst thou truly lordship sanction in one so bereft of light?
We're entering the DLC as a tarnished that was sanctioned to become Elden Lord.
What does
But it
sanction
seems
mean?
events in the base game might pale in comparison to what's playing out here with Mika, who arrived long before
Mika.
we did.
I presume you, too, are keen to know just what kind Mikola is doing here.
So let's talk about everything.
It's a pretty area.
Analyzed every frame.
Every
translated
frame?
interview, and
Jesus
I haven't
Christ.
slept in 2 days, so good night, and I hope you enjoy.
Good night.
Those
Sleep well, body.
of the race of gold shadow meet death in the embrace of Mesmer's flame.
Come
That looks like a fun attack. That looks like a fun attack. Jesus. Do you think that they're gonna try to make anything in this that's harder than Millennia?
Before we break down
I feel
the
like
story,
yes.
I'm going to highlight what I think are
There's like no way
three
they
of the
don't,
biggest
right?
gameplay details that I found hidden in some translated interviews. First, Elden Ring's DLC will actually feature a new power scaling feature that will come into play while you're in the
Yeah, I
Land
heard
of
of that.
Shadow.
I think that was a
Here,
good
our
idea.
character will be able to upgrade their attack power in a way that is separate from your rune level. Let me explain that. So, Miyazaki mentions that this system is somewhat similar to how attack power works in Sekiro.
So it
In
doesn't.
Sekiro, you don't level attributes to do more damage like you would do in Elden Ring. Instead, your attack power can be raised by defeating certain bosses and claiming their memories. So, a system like this is being added to Elden Ring, and it will be a new way to get stronger in the DLC, in addition to using runes to level up
Oh, in
as you're
addition.
used to. The reason
So
this is
both?
being added is because From Software know that there are a lot of players who will be going into the DLC at
Who is
high
that?
levels with their completed characters. And so instead of having players with completed characters just steamrolling the content, they want players to have that
That's me.
classic
Oh.
experience of struggling against bosses and needing to explore other areas to get stronger and to try again. So, by adding a new attack power resource,
Is that
and
a
hopefully
fucking
also
hippo?
by scaling our characters,
What the fuck was that? I
think
didn't
this
notice
will
that
be
before.
genius. And it's especially important for a game like Elden Ring to have this.
What the
Because
hell?
this game will live or die by the enormous, expansive world it has, and you need to want or need to explore that world. Next, of course the DLC will be getting
It's a
many
little
new
quiet.
weapons, but most interesting is that these new weapons span 8 new weapon categories. Elden Ring already had a ton of weapon types, so
That's too
getting
loud
8
now?
more is actually
I'm
kind of
deaf,
insane.
so.
So far, we know 6 of these new categories. One
Oh,
is
okay.
the dueling shield, which combines offense and defense. Another are these reverse grip swords that we see
Reverse
being
grip.
wielded in this clip. And then there's weapons that enable a martial arts style, reminiscent of the Dragon Bone Fist from Dark Souls 2, or the Senpo monks
Don't
from
know what the fuck
Sekiro.
that is, because I didn't finish that
Miyazaki
game.
also mentions a large Japanese sword and a new large sword, whatever that
Big
means.
sword!
Personally,
love
I'm
the
most
big
excited
swords.
For these. These are equipable throwing weapons where all of your melee attacks are thrown attacks. Elden Ring always had really smooth, ranged gameplay, but the weapons were so bad that it just wasn't worth playing, so I really hope these are viable.
True.
Anyway, the third gameplay point I want to mention is that, again, Miyazaki says that the DLC area should be at least the same size as Limgrave. But
That is like
you
a
need to
whole
bear
new
in
game.
mind, this is coming from the same humble man who told everyone that Elden Ring would take about 30 hours to complete. So I wouldn't be surprised if Miyazaki is underselling the size of the
You
DLC.
said 30 hours?
If anything. But that's enough about gameplay for now.
Maybe he's just
Let's
a god,
talk
I don't know.
Shortly after the DLC trailer released, I received an email from Namco Bandai about it, and they included this short poem.
He got
It
an email
reads,
personally
"The Land of Shadow,
from Bandai
a place
Namco.
obscured by the Erdtree, where the goddess Marika first set foot, a land purged in an unsung battle, set ablaze by Mesmer's flame. It was to
How
this
come
land
he got
that
this
Mikola
poem?
departed,
What the heck?
divesting himself of his
They
flesh,
love him.
his strength, his lineage, of all things golden. And now Mikola awaits the return of his promised lord." Let's break that down, starting with the Land of Shadow. According to interviews with Miyazaki, the Land of Shadow is a place that has become physically disconnected from the Lands Between. So this isn't an alternate version of the Lands Between,
I hate.
nor does it seem like we'll
What
be
does
going
that
backwards
mean?
or forwards in
Like-
time to access the DLC for once.
Dude, fantasy
That is refreshing
explanations for
compared
world
to
building.
past FromSoftware
What is that?
DLCs.
Dude, he's literally like. He's a little worm! He's got hair too. Isn't he doing like a thumbs up? I can't tell. It's a Ghibli worm. Yeah, kinda. Yeah, it's got like the bard face or the spirit face.
I am excited for
Yeah, why is it-
DLC that will
Okay, when he zoomed in, it's kind of scary. Oh, look at the little hands. He's like. Yeah, it's kind of not as cute close up.
expand on the present world for once, rather than a past or future world. That said, if anything, the Land of Shadow will definitely contain many remnants of the past, as it is a place obscured by the Erdtree, where the goddess Marika first set foot.
Sorry, dude. I hate when. This is like one of the most actually horrifying things to
Definitely
me.
contain
When. Hold on.
many remnants.
When they give animals human teeth. I hate it. It looks so wrong. Like, oh, it actually just like makes me uncomfortable.
Of the past, as it is a place obscured
Yeah,
by
it's
the
like
Erdtree,
FMA.
where the goddess Marika first set foot. If this place can be obscured simply because the Erdtree exists, then I lean towards thinking that this might have always been some sort of shadowy dimension, rather than
A shadow
once physically
dimension.
being a part of the Lands Between landmass, although there is a nicely sized gap right in the middle of the lands between where this might fit. But I think the Erdtree does generate a ton of light, so the idea of a land of shadow being obscured by the Erdtree kind of makes a lot of sense.
Does it?
As for why this place became obscured,
Like you turn
by
off the
Erdtree,
Erdtree and you can
I
see
think we
the
can
other.
lay
I don't.
the blame squarely at the feet of Marika, since the
Marika's
age of
feet.
the Erdtree is her age, after all, and this age only came about when she ascended to godhood and became the vessel of the Elden Ring. The biggest part that's always been missing from Marika's story is what happened before she became a god.
She was
And the
just
shadow
a
of
girl.
the Erdtree seems to hide
She was
the
just a
answers to
lady.
that exact question, since the poem calls the land of shadow the place where the goddess Marika first set foot. Marika setting foot in this place before setting foot in the lands between makes a lot of sense, because we've always known that Marika isn't from the lands between. She's a part of the Newman race, and the Newman are said to have come from outside the lands between. The character creator calls the Newman supposed descendants of denizens of another world, so
They're
either
aliens.
this other world is the land of shadow, and Marika originates from there, or Marika comes from somewhere outside the lands between and outside the land of shadow, but simply set foot in the land of shadow before venturing to the lands between. Either interpretation could be true at this point, I think. At any rate, it seems like the Land of Shadows is extremely important to Marika's past. Miyazaki drops a huge
her
detail
boobs are out.
on that note,
What the
stating
fuck?
that the Land of Shadows is the place where Marika became a god, and the Golden Tree was born. I can't wait for the DLC to elaborate on those circumstances. When Marika did claim the Elden Ring, her most significant act was removing the Rune of Death from it. Afterwards, many previous cultures of death were rendered obsolete, as souls were now supposed to return to the Erdtree. So, if souls started to return to the Erdtree, where they were presumably reborn, where were souls going before that? Now, this is just speculation, but is it possible souls once went to the Land of Shadow? Could the Land of Shadow once have been a sort of afterlife? As evidence for this claim, consider that A. Mikola only managed to depart to the Land of Shadow when he divested himself of his grace and his flesh, so his death led to him being here. Next, trailer dialogue explains that those stripped of the grace of gold shall all meet death in the embrace of Mesmer's flame. So those who are stripped of the grace of gold have to meet death in this place. And the last bit of evidence for this speculation is that there already is a shadowy realm of death alluded to in Elden Ring lore, called the Helfen.
This is so hard to follow
So,
sometimes.
since we know that the Erdtree disrupted the previous cycles of
T-Dot,
death
thanks for
in the
31
lands
months.
between, it definitely makes sense to me that the Erdtree might obscure the Land of Shadow beyond just being a bright source of light. It might have replaced its existence as a sort of afterlife, but I could definitely be wrong on the afterlife stuff, so let me know what you think. At any rate, the Land of Shadow has now become relevant again.
It
for
fell off.
Tarnished have
It was
found a way
irrelevant.
to enter this forsaken place. The poem goes on to read, "A land purged in an unsung battle, set ablaze by Mesmer's flame." I interpret this as the land was purged in an unsung battle, and then it was set ablaze by Mesmer's flame. These seem to be two separate things. So first, let's talk about the war.
That thing's a fucking freak.
Unsung battle. In an interview, Miyazaki references the war when he was asked about
Wait,
this
did you? Wait, the lion is just like 3 dudes in a trench coat. Look.
battle.
Wait, look.
In an interview, Miyazaki references
It's like 3 dudes standing on top of each other. What the fuck?
the war when he was asked about this Wicker Man.
Oh, it's supposed to be a
and
lion
replies,
dance? Oh.
So, this giant
That's- I
basket
like
of
that.
flame was a terrible,
I mean, it's also
gruesome
fucking
weapon
horrifying,
used in a
but-
war that occurred in the Land of Shadow. The kindling that you see is actually the remains of bodies that were put in there to burn. As for whose enemies were put inside the Wicker Man, I'd wager that it was Marika's enemies, since she's the one who came out victorious as a
Imagine
god,
being stuck in the Wicker
with
Man.
the golden tree as well.
He's actually just a wicker
speculation,
basket.
though.
Look at him.
Zully the Witch points out that the Wicker Man traces its origins back to Celtic myth, where people were allegedly sacrificed within a Wicker statue.
Wait, what? Allegedly? Wait, did this actually... It says myth, but... I mean, at the same time, like, I feel like I can see people doing that. It's a myth. I mean, people have done worse.
Back to Celtic myth, where people were allegedly sacrificed within a Wicker statue, and many other users have pointed out that this design may have instead been drawn from Berserk.
They were never saints. They just happened to be on the losing side of a war.
If you look closely, you can actually see a mane of red hair attached around a face on the Wicker Man's upper thighs. Red hair like this is referenced in the giant's
that's the-
red braid.
The
which
giant.
reads, Every
The
giant
fuck is
is
his name?
red of
Fire
hair,
giant?
and Radigan was said to have despised his own red locks. Perhaps that was a curse of their kind. Incidentally, the red hair here is just one of many symbols in the trailer that are considered blasphemous over in the lands between.
Doesn't
Omen
Millennia
horns,
has red
for
hair?
example, are another such symbol of despised beings under the Golden Order, and Omen horns are
Yeah, why do they
seen
hate ginger so
here on
much?
the Wicker Man, here upon the Lion Dancer, here on these enemies, and even upon the roaring rune bear thing, which also has that red hair. And then there's this hippo thing that's using an aspect of the crucible, which were also aspects that became despised and scorned. And then there's a spirit wielding the iron cleaver that's the signature weapon of the misbegotten, who were also despised. So lots of blasphemous symbols going on, but no character in the DLC has as many of them as Mesmer, who is the character that is at the heart of the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, maybe even more so than Mika. This is the demigod who would set ablaze the land of Shadow.
Mother, wouldst thou truly lordship sanction in one so bereft of light?
So this is Mesmer, and the mother he mentions is Queen Marika. An official interview
Dude, this
makes
girl needs to stop
quite
having
clear.
kids, like,
To quote
they're all
Miyazaki,
fucked
and
up.
you may have seen at the end
Chill.
of the trailer, there was this piece of key art where it shows Mesmer sat in this throne-like chair.
Like, what the
And
fuck?
People who've played the game may recognize this throne to be one of those from the boss room where you battle Morgoth, and this represents the thrones at the base of the Erdtree.
Needs
It's
birth
supposed
control.
to symbolize that Mesmer stands on equal
Radigan.
footing to these other demigods
Vasectomy.
and children of Marika who sat around in these thrones and held the rooms of the Erdtree. So he is an important figure who
Off his
rivals
balls?
these other
No,
demigods.
just like
And
Cheddar.
as you play the DLC, you will learn a
Cheddar.
little about why he wasn't featured in the Legends of the Erdtree, the Lands Between. You'll realize why he exists in this shadow, this land of shadow. As to who Mesmer's father is, well, there are many signs that they're a product of Radigan. For one, there's the red hair, and then there's the fact that Mesmer's name starts with M,
Ah,
which suits
of
the naming
course.
convention for the children of Marika Radigan, who are Mika, Melania, and possibly Melina. Speaking of Melina, we've talked many times about the butterfly theory, which posits that all children of Radigan Marika have a butterfly of their own. Mikala's is the nascent butterfly, Melania's is the Aeonian butterfly, and since Melina is the kindling maiden, we've long speculated that hers was the smouldering butterfly. But now it seems
She gets
that
her own
butterfly
butterfly.
could belong to
Nope.
Mesmer instead,
Unlucky.
given his much more overt flame symbolism. That said, there is a fourth
Cheddar!
pink butterfly featured in the trailer now, so
Yo, Cheddar's
it's
here.
possible the butterfly theory
Cheddar.
might still have wings. If Mesmer was
Good one,
legitimately born alongside the other children of Marika Radigan, that actually places his existence a little bit later in the timeline. Still in the age of the Erdtree, but after Radigan left
my
Ramel
ballless
for
rat.
Marika. Whatever the
Still
case,
lets me hold
Mesmer
him.
would find himself in the
Kinda.
Land of Shadow, delivering death to those stripped of the grace of gold.
Oh, you're a good kid. You've got flea medicine on your neck, I can feel it.
Shadow, death, in the embrace of Mesmer's flame.
Since this line is
Wait, he
delivered
looks
by
kinda
a third
derpy
party,
right now.
it seems
Are you
there's
drugged
a
up?
common belief
Are
here
there drugs
that
hidden?
Mesmer's role is to deliver death to those stripped of grace who find themselves in the Land of Shadow, including, apparently, our
Are you
Tarnished,
tripping balls? Oh wait, too soon?
finds themselves at
I'm
odds
sorry.
with Mesmer.
Wait, he's acting really weird.
Mother, wouldst thou truly lordship sanction in one so bereft of light?
Wait,
In
he's
this
acting
dialogue,
really weird.
I think Mesmer is
sleepy?
questioning
It's okay.
why Marika has seen fit to restore grace to the Tarnished and
okay?
sanction their lordship, guiding them to become Elden Lord, even though in his eyes we are bereft of light. Mesmer strikes me as a bit of a rebel and an outcast. He's not what you'd expect from someone who is clearly
Sorry, his eyes are so glossy. Are you okay? His eyes are like glazed over. Wait, but why was it? You seemed fine earlier. Are you pretending because you want attention? Hi. Are you serious? Well, kind of busy cheddar, you know. Watching the newest VaatiVidya video.
killing people who have been stripped of the grace of gold.
Oh, Jesus!
But I do ultimately think that he holds
You okay?
Marika in high regard. I do
Bro, he's acting really weird now, but he was acting normal when I got home. Well, whatever. Him and Bunky are gonna hang out. Oh wait, came across you from lost shorts of you being an absolute moon and getting mad. Everyone getting mad for no reason. One clip in particular, I feel controller as- wait, what? If you have a controller like that in Dark Souls, how do you pull the trigger to use your primary attack? So I hold it like this, but I only do this when I'm running, so I can run and move the camera at the same time, but when I fight, I hold it like this. Like normal. It's adaptive. Okay, it's adaptive controller holding. Okay, well they're playing, they're fine.
think he's doing this on her behalf. The fact that he sits on a demigod's
I'm still
throne
dying.
might be evidence enough, but in an excellent bit of photo manipulation by user Woosa69 on Reddit, we can clearly spy a statue of what
Oh,
seems
shit.
to be Marika in the background.
What?
It has her signature braid and
I am not seeing this braid. What braid?
her armband as well. And uniquely, she's holding a baby who could be Mesmer, but
Am I wrong or is the statue just like protecting its head?
that's just
Maybe I'm just
speculation.
blind.
We know Marika uses people, even her enemies. Even
Nah.
the Blasphemous.
I don't know, bruh.
She will keep a fire giant alive just so it can watch over something for eternity. She will disguise herself as Radigan, make her biggest rival fall in love with him, and then abandon that rival and undo them from within. She
went
will
crazy.
condemn the misbegotten and then get one of them to craft weapons for a tarnished so that they can become Elden Lord. So in a similar way, I feel like Mesmer being useful to Marika, despite very clearly being a blasphemous character, really isn't that strange. But what do I mean about Mesmer being blasphemous? Well, first, there's the snakes. According to the Gravekeeper cloak, the snake is viewed as a traitor to the Erdtree. And now we don't know if they're talking about Mesmer's snake or the Great Serpent, which is what we assumed before. Whatever the case, there's no way that Mesmer's snakes would be looked upon favorably by the Golden Order. In the Erdtree Colosseums, for example, the audience delighted in seeing the bronze snakes on the armor of the gladiators be beaten and battered. And then there's Mesmer's usage
Is that
of
what that
flame.
means?
According to the Spark aromatic, fire was prohibited to those who served the Erdtree. And while this rule was forgotten as the war drew ever on, I do think Mesmer might have some links to the flame of the Fell God, if I had to guess. He's got the red hair, and snakes do appear on the Giant's Flame Forge in the mountaintops, but I'll admit these connections are pretty shaky. We don't know exactly what kind of flame
Doesn't Radigan
Mesmer
literally
is
have
using
red hair?
just yet.
Like,
Lastly,
just from
Mesmer
his
clearly
dad.
has a connection to Dragon Communion, which is also something that's frowned upon. Dragon Communion is the abhorrent act
Oh,
of
he has fire
consuming
giant
the hearts
ancestry?
of dragons to
Damn,
commune
bro got all the
with
short
the
genes,
ancient
huh?
dragons and become
L.
more like them. According to the Magma Worm's Scale Sword, Dragon Communion is a grave transgression for which many partakers were
Says you,
cursed
whatever.
to crawl on their bellies as shadows of their former selves. As evidence for Mesmer's communion, his one good eye is yellow and slitted, which is a clear symptom of consuming the dragon hearts that even our Tarnished gets afflicted with. And, not to mention, his
yummy.
winged armor looks a lot like the Drake Knight set, which is a set that labels the Drake Knights as partakers of communion. Then there's this symbol on the box art, and even the fire he conjures that looks a little bit like the Dragon Communion seal, but it's not a one-to-one match. And then serpents themselves are considered imperfect dragons, in Dark Souls lore at least, and Mesmer's serpents are sprouting draconic wings, so there could be something there. On this promotional page, we also learn that Mesmer's full title
Statue
is
of Mesmer the Impaler.
And it could be that this name simply comes from his fighting style, but I will
What is he
also
impaling?
point out, as many others have already, that there is a catacomb in the Lands Between called the Impaler's Catacombs. So it's possible he got this
Your
reputation
mom?
from certain deeds that he
What
committed
the
in the
fuck?
Lands Between. Of all the characters I can think of, only the Fire Giants and Marika
Ugh.
come to mind as ever being impaled. The Fire Giant's stakes aren't identical to Mesmer's spear, but they are similar, and Marika being impaled at the end of the game never really had a good explanation, so maybe this is a chance for them to explain that, finally. So, in conclusion, I get the vibe that
Erica's
Mesmer
boobs.
is this rebellious, kind of blasphemous child, but that they're still loyal and, more importantly, still useful to their mother, who is Marika. Though, of course, all my opinions and speculations in this video, especially, are very subject to change. Next,
Yeah,
let's talk about
I think
Mika.
so. I mean, it's still fun to speculate,
Mika is
I
many
guess.
things. He is the demigod son of Queen Marika and her consort Radigan. He is Mikola the Nascent, cursed with eternal youth. He is Mikola the Unalloyed, who sought to find a cure for his sister's scarlet rot. He is Saint Trina, an alter ego who deals in sleep. and dreams. And
It's
he
also
is
a fucking
Mikola of the
saint.
Halig Tree, a sort of Erdtree that he eventually embedded himself within. He's also the subject of an hour-long lore video on my channel, and I'm also going to be talking about him again later this week in the lore
Wait,
video.
so what's
about
going
Moog.
on here? Like, every time I open like a post on the Elden Ring subreddit about Moog or Mikola, all the comments are like Moog Lester. I'm like, what the fuck is, like, I don't. Moog stole the womb. He kidnaps the kid. Oh, they're half brothers. He swagged out. Oh, he plays League? Oh, okay. He literally groomed his half-brother, cursed to be eternal child. To top laner. Oh no.
Moog, so please forgive me for being brief in my description of him here. Suffice to say though, Mikola is a very important demigod. He's also an Empyrean, which means he is a rare character eligible to become a god and succeed Queen Marika.
Rare character.
Additionally, his sister says that he is the most fearsome Empyrean of all, and that he possesses the wisdom, the allure of a god. It's this allure that has led to his fate in the base game, which is to say, he appears to be dead at the hands of Moog, who is
Maybe they'll
Mikola's
make
demigod
a second
half-brother.
DLC.
Moog
What the hell?
ripped Mikola's cocoon out of the Halig Tree
Okay, I get it now.
and abducted him. Now Mikola's cocooned flesh lies in Mogwin Palace, and
Okay.
his withered arm there will become the entrance to the DLC. Miyazaki elaborates on this point, stating that Mikola has traveled to the Land of Shadow for his own reasons, and it's up to the player to follow.
They already
his
said this will be the
footsteps,
last one?
as many
Oh.
other NPCs
Frick, okay,
also
well, never
have
mind.
before you. The poem reads,
That means they'll
"It was
make
to
a
this
new
land
game
that Mikola
after
departed,
that, right?
divesting himself of his flesh, his strength, his lineage, of all things golden." The fact that Mikola has divested himself of his flesh reminds me a lot of Rani, who slays her own flesh intentionally in order to free her from the control of the two fingers. Through his own death, it
I feel
seems,
that.
he has departed to the land
She
of
was
shadow.
like, bye, I'm gonna
Though
go live
now
inside
he
a
is
doll
without
now.
his strength. He's also likely divested himself from his great rune, which is probably this one, seen here, which takes the same shape as this emote you get for pre-ordering, which is called Ring of Mikola.
Ring!
So all of this should explain
I'm
why
ringing.
he needs you. The poem continues, and now Mikola awaits the return of his promised lord. If I had to guess where we're ultimately headed, it would be the castle here, right beneath the shadow of the Erdtree. Here, an ark is catching the bounty of the Erdtree, just like the rune arcs do, and the sky above
Hello,
is
Cheddar.
enwreathed by these ethereal cloth tapestries. According to Miyazaki, these tapestries are a veil, and they are a symbol of the land of shadows being hidden from the world outside. And speaking of veils,
Or
the black
mumbles.
knives are
Whatever got it.
sentinels that are invisible due to their concealing
tell
veils.
Miz.
And we have a talisman that is a part of those
Cheddar
veils, put together
is
from
literally
dark
the
cloth
same cat.
with a lustrous
I don't
sheen
know if he
that
even
completely
knows what
hides the
happened.
wearer's presence. Earlier, we talked about how Marika was likely responsible for the Land of Shadow being concealed or veiled, and according to the Black Knife armor, the Black Knives are rumored to be Newman who had close ties with Marika herself, so maybe we're already starting to understand the nature of this veil. That said, the way
A
this
veil.
veil is laid brings to mind a lot of things. First, it reminded me of Marika's bedchambers. then I thought maybe it could represent
That's where she
Mohg's
made all of
bloody
her
bedchamber,
four
as he puts it.
freakish kids.
Or it could even represent the Baldachins of the Deathbed Companions, which, according to the Baldachins' blessings, are hidden temples in the guise of the bedchamber. This could represent...
Miss said he's probably sad right now. He's sore. That doesn't look sad.
Mikola's long-awaited rebirth, or maybe his eternal nascence. It could even represent the fact that he is Saint Trina, an alter ego that has to do with sleep.
Yeah, he looks
and
very
dreams.
Chetish right now.
So many things.
He's very
Speaking
Chetish for
of
sure.
Saint Trina, though, there's a brief shot of a masked character who looks like they're sleeping in a purple swamp.
Good night.
The droopy flowers in the background might be Saint Trina's lilies, and the purple haze of this swampy area definitely gives off sleep effect vibes. You might recall when Ranni first meets with you in Elden Ring,
My wife!
she does so amidst a mist, which has put Kale and his donkey to sleep nearby. And the
I
more I
didn't even
think
notice
about
that.
it, the more I think this encounter might have to do with Mikola. In this moment, Ranni gives you the spirit calling bell and 3 wolves, which she says are from Torrent's former master. And considering we see what looks to be Mikola riding Torrent here in the Land of Shadow, I think we can
Mikola
reason
has some beautiful
that
hair.
Torrent is Mikola's steed, and thus that Mikola has given you gifts via Ranni and favored you ever since the very beginning of the game. But the rabbit hole goes deeper, because Melina is the one who gives you Torrent's whistle at the start of the game. And since we've now learned that Torrent was likely in the Land of Shadow with Mikola, does that mean that Melina
He has very
would have ventured
feminine
to the Land of
feet.
Shadow
Bro,
to retrieve Torrent
That's
from Mikola
Mohg's ult
at
in
some
chat
point?
right now.
Remember,
Mohg's typing
Melina's
in the
origins
chat.
are largely unresolved in Elden Ring, so I really hope we learn more about her story in this place. The fact that she might have traveled to a land that's enwreathed in Mesmer's flame might also explain
It's Nick
why
on his
she's
ult.
burned
Oh no.
and bodiless, but now I'm just engaging in unhinged speculation.
Nah, Nick only likes
These
adult
theories
women.
might have got out of hand. But let me do unhinged speculation on one more thing.
Yeah, what
and
happened to the captions?
I want to
turned
draw
them
your
off.
attention to
Oops.
the fact that we've learned that it's necessary to kill Radahn to access the DLC. That's curious. It seems to hint that his death is essential for events in the Land of Shadow to make sense. Logically, this would be related to the meteor shower that happens after you kill him, right? Because it's in this moment that the fate in the night sky is suddenly let free. Perhaps Melania was even chasing this world state where fate
atomic
is
bomb.
freed from the night sky, and maybe she was sent here to kill Radahn on behalf of Mikola when she fought him all those years ago. What's crazy is we still don't know why Melania fought Radahn, so hopefully we get an answer for that as well. And of course, most of you won't have to worry about killing Radahn, as your characters are likely already at the end of the story. And speaking of the end of the story, Miyazaki's recent interview reveals that they don't currently have plans to make a second DLC for Elden Ring, so whatever ending that's coming
Just charge
with Mikola
$50 for the
might
next
be
one.
the final one. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's shaping up to be a good ending with Mikola.
Pure and radiant, he wields love to shrive clean the hearts of men. There is nothing more terrifying.
To shrive is to hear confession, to assign penance and absolve someone. Sounds like a pretty harrowing
I have no idea what he's
process.
talking about right now, I'm not gonna lie.
That is a perfect match for Mikola, who is described as both
Toast.
benevolent and fearsome. This is that ominous love of Mikola, which is a really unique vibe, and I'm very excited to see where things will go. Believe it or not, I've still got a lot of the trailer to break down, but first I'd like to finally reveal this This is the Shadow of the
Oh
Great Tree,
no!
a unique displate design that I
Wait,
wanted
look,
to...
he's got boxes. Or they're at least sealed, they're not graded. It's got Guild Wars, wow, Pokemon Yellow. It's on the right.
create where you can flip it upside down and
I don't even know.
get a completely different perspective. There's 2 prints in. Let me quickfire some observations at you before I go, since there's a lot I couldn't quite fit into the previous parts of the video. First, this is my favorite enemy design in the trailer. Its body is actually made up of 3 or 4 robed humanoid beings, and they're all coordinating together to puppeteer this beast, just like the traditional lion dances from Chinese culture. It's amazingly
Me and Emily were
inspiring.
gonna go to one of
According
those.
to Miyazaki, there was a culture that existed before the
Every
Golden
year.
Tree, and the lion dancer is derived from
A lion
that
dance, I mean,
culture.
not whatever the
Next
fuck this
This
is.
character who sits alone in a room filled with debris. Quaylarg over on YouTube has acutely noted that they look very much like the scholar who appears upon the carrion inverted statue, which is a
Actually-
key item given to you by Rani during her questline.
Gumby,
The area
thanks for
they
5
appear
months.
in seems to also feature the many bird cages of Raya Lucaria, so it's exciting to see that we might be learning more about some of the glintstone sorcerers. Next, this character wears the deep navy hood of expatriated royalty, and the hood was gifted to those who saw the guidance of grace, who then departed on missions to faraway lands, from which they would never return. They cast a completely new spell type, and in the background we see lion statues with omen horns.
And human
The fact
teeth!
that these lions with
I
omen
hate
horns
it.
are venerated might suggest that this was from a time when horns were seen as signifiers of the divine and not symbols of ill omen. Also, I was so excited to see this player cast these golden wings. We have many aspects of the Crucible spells, but we could never cast the wings, which until this point were only able to be utilized by the Crucible Knights.
Fuck these guys.
And I don't think that's the only new Crucible spell we're getting access to. A new screenshot shows the Tarnished using these golden porcupine spines, the same ones utilized by this deformed hippo enemy after it charges, and the sound it makes is just like a Crucible spell. But I wonder if this pot thrown by the player character
Pot.
is a spell or a consumable or a weapon art.
A
Speaking
weapon
of new
art?
Screenshots. I want to know the story behind this guy.
Yeah, what the
I would
fuck is
protect
him?
with my life. It seems like he appears in this same field of blue flowers, which, if you look carefully,
A
has
worm.
that grave that has a hole in it that you find in Morn's castle. There's also, of course, this red dancer character. There are a couple of dancer characters in Elden Ring, so maybe she's related to that. Oh, and I also adore the design on this guy who is attempting this impossible
He's
task.
pulling his spine out of his skull, but his spine also has like little wings. Oh god.
Of wrenching a sort of spinal golden ribcage through a hole in his skull. Interested to see what happens after that. And if you look closely at his robes, you'll notice he's actually the same character as the man in this portrait at another point in the trailer. So there's clearly
What
a
happened to
story
him?
here, especially if they're worthy of a portrait, right? Next to this man is a woman who looks a little bit like a deathbed
I
companion.
hear a phone
The origins
vibrating.
of the deathbed companions
but
were
it is
alluded
not
to in the base
my
game,
phone.
so it seems kind of fitting that we might explore
That is
those
strange.
origins further in the Land of Shadow, but who knows. I also wonder if this enemy could be a Knight of Radan. They
Is
use
Cheddar-
gravitational magic, as a lot of his knights
That's
do.
a new feature.
They're
since he
also
got his
armored
balls
somewhat
chopped off.
similarly, and they ride a boar, and Radan's helmet has boar-like tusks, so that might be a thing. But there's just too much to speculate over. Could this armor be related to the Knight's cavalry? This Twitter user points out that Mesmer's statue looks a lot like the pose of the Cleanrot Knight. Is there a reason for that? Could these black knights with gold trim be related to Malekith? Are the people who are wearing masks part of House Mirai? Why is the top of this castle blackened and disintegrating into the sky? Why is there a line of birds standing before you in this swamp? Is this character afflicted by frenzy?
They're just chilling.
Are they a worm face? Their posture is kind of similar. Are we getting Runebear communion spells? And a huge question, why does Mesmer only have one functioning eye? So many questions, but I guess it'll have to wait.
I don't know.
Subscribe for more Elden Ring lore in the coming weeks, and
I hear it
subscribe to keep up
again.
with all the biggest news regarding the DLC. Thank you to MissPap1 for helping me with the edit for this video, and thank you to all of those I referenced.
Oh,
in
that
this
was my
video
actual phone.
in the description. Check out the new displate if you're interested, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.
I enjoyed that. I'm excited to play. But now I can't wait to read all of the fucking Reddit theories on my homepage for the next 4 months, and then they're all just fucking wrong. But I'm still gonna read them anyway.